leaving the Clippers short on firepower. Now, they trailed by as many as 24 points in the first half, but they would come back here in the third. Trailing by 11, chipping away. Kawhi, he drives, dunks over the defense. He was doing his best to carry the team. Whenever he was on the floor, they were fine. The problem was when he was not on the floor. So 12 seconds left here. Clippers trailing by 4. Lou Williams to the pass, drains that 3. They cut it to 1. They were trailing by 19 at the half, so George loving it. But the Spurs finishing strong. Sometimes you forget how good Patty Mills is, but he was shining last night. Drains that 3. He hit 8 3-point shots. He would go for 27. A minute remaining. Patrick Beverley drives, finishes at the rim. So the Clippers trim the lead to 4. Now 6 seconds remaining. Clippers down by 3. One last shot. So give it to Kawhi, right? He got a good look, but he's unable to make that three-pointer. The comeback falls short. Leonard goes for 30 points, 10 assists. Spurs with a 116-113 win.
Really slow starts the last couple games. You guys are down maybe 2-11 or 9-0. Why is that? What can you attribute that to? Why is that happening?
I don't believe that. We just started off to a great start last game. So, we was up 20-something in the first half.
But there have been a couple instances where you guys are getting out to, big holes early on.
I think the only game was tonight and maybe Utah. Just tonight, talk about tonight, we didn't come out with no urgency. The Spurs played harder than us in that first quarter. We really didn't touch the paint at all on the offensive end. We got some quick shots up, and then from there we started to build and get a rhythm.
We'll go to Justin Russo.
Hey, Kawhi. This is your third game this season with at least 7 assists and no turnovers. How do you feel that your playmaking has grown from where you first started in the NBA to where it is now?
It's grown a lot. Coming into the league, nobody knew who I was, and there was nothing expected of me. I'm not getting the ball. And, now, I'm able to, touch the ball a lot more, getting some pick and rolls, getting some isolation situations, and just finding my guys. But the big thing is, my teammates are knocking down shots, and that's how you get an assist. So I give them the credit. I thank them for making the shots.
Thanks, Justin. We'll go over to Beth. You can go ahead, Beth.
Hey, Kawhi, what kind of look did you get on that shot?
I didn't hear you.
What kind of look did you get on that last shot of the game?
I shot a 3, fade away.
We'll go over to Cam.
When you talk about Pat Beverley's performance tonight, he was 70% from the floor, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. What kind of what that meant to your team today?
It was great. He was pushing the pace in transition, getting to the paint, throwing it out to shooters. We knocked down shots for him. He was very active on defense, also crashing those offensive rebounds, trying to get us an extra attempt up, and locked in on defense. You know what I mean?
To answer the question directly, Kawhi or PG, I would say PG, because by default, not that PG is this vocal leader, this rah-rah guy, but it's because everything that I've heard about Kawhi Leonard, elite, which we all know, both ends of the floor. He is a superstar player. but he is one of the most indifferent leaders you will ever see in your life. He is not a guy that is going to galvanize and inspire. He is a guy that is a master at doing his job, and those other responsibilities come with someone else. And because of that, some people pointed out to how that was a huge problem for the Clippers last year. Now, we can't ignore that PG clearly had a problem with Montrezl Harrell and vice versa. Harrell basically told everybody that. But in the end, when I look at PG, because of all the sacrifices that were made by the Clippers in order to get him, and all the talk that he's been doing about how he's going to get in everybody's you know what, he's got his old trainer back, etc., etc. He's the one guy that could influence Kawhi, for Kawhi to influence others. If anybody could pull it off, it has to be PG, because of what Kawhi went through, or what Kawhi insisted upon in order for the Clippers to ultimately get PG. So it's basically by default, but I would say based on Kawhi's personality and what he has shown throughout his entire career, PG is a bit more talkative. He is a bit more loquacious. He does seem more willing to communicate and talk with folks. And I think that lends itself towards leadership in a lot of ways in the NBA. So I would say PG over Kawhi in that regard. But he obviously has to perform on the court in order for people to want to listen to him.
The answer is Kawhi. And the answer is Kawhi for a very simple reason. Because PG-13 goes away in the playoffs. And that dude can't be your leader. He could be an excellent player. And when I say goes away, he's better than an average starter. He's average, somewhere between an average starter and an all-star. But in the regular season, he's somewhere between an all-star and an MVP. He declines in the playoffs. And whatever happened with Kawhi in that last Game 7, or, whatever. Like, some guys have bad nights, and that was a bad time to have a bad night. Kawhi was excellent, as Perk has pointed out. Extraordinary. Through the playoffs for the second consecutive year, because the year before, he won Finals MVP. And that wasn't the first Finals MVP he won. So Kawhi's style is, as you say, Stephen A., that's what the reporting has been, that's what you hear, and I wouldn't dispute it, and it's maybe not ideal. Although, some people lead by example. And if Kawhi is the best at just doing his job, and that's the example he sets, maybe everyone should just do their jobs. But the problem with Paul George is he's disqualified because your best player should be your leader. And barring that, a clutch player can be your leader, but not a guy you can't rely on when it matters most. That's why the report. Has also been that the team didn't have a problem with the special treatment Kawhi got. They had a problem with the special treatment Paul George got. That can't be your leader.
Max, you are so wrong right now. You are so wrong in so many areas by saying that your best player has to be your leader, and that is not true. When you look at the Miami Heat, do you know who's the leader for the Miami Heat, Max? Who is the leader for the Miami Heat?
I didn't say your best player has to be your leader. Jimmy Butler.
You just said that. Who? No, he's not. Udonis Haslem is the leader for the Miami Heat. So with that being said, a lot of guys can't gravitate to guys coming up just to show up to work. Your leader does everything else off the court also. And to me, it's a no-brainer to answer the question. Paul George is the better leader. Why? Because he's more vocal. We haven't heard 10 words from Kawhi Leonard this offseason. And when reports come out, they talk about the special treatment that Kawhi gets, being able to take his helicopter to practice, being able to fly back to San Diego to live in his $20 million mansion, holding the plane up, being late, having his own coach on the coaching staff, having his own trainer, everything, just being a loner. So PG, although I don't agree with a lot of things that comes out of his mouth, at least he owns up to a lot of things. He's not afraid to address certain things, especially when it's about himself. It's not all about your leader has to deliver on the court, Max. Your leader is a guy that's going to be vocal. And by the way, the Clippers just invested over $200 million into Paul George. So that means the Clippers are committed to Paul George, and Paul George is committed to the Clippers. Kawhi haven't signed nothing yet. He has a player option for next year. So with that being said, PG is the leader. He has to be the leader, the guy that steps up vocally in the locker room, calling team dinners when they, on the road, getting guys together. That has to be Paul George, because we know that's not Kawhi Leonard, and history tells us that because he wasn't even the leader in Toronto. So that being said, it's Paul George.
I'm not in a position to dispute your locker room experience, who have played on a championship team. When you bring up a guy like Haslam, who's, the Lifetime Heat Award, whatever that is, I get it. He's synonymous with the franchise. We're talking about different things here, though. Haslam, if you want to call Haslam the leader instead of the heart and soul or a culture setter or whatever, there is leadership in that. But when I think of the Heat, I don't think of Haslam. I don't think the Heat are going to go as far as Haslam leads them. I think of Jimmy Butler. And sure, Kawhi should be more vocal ideally. That's not his style. Maybe you need another dude like a Rondo on that team. That's why we were all talking about that, who would have been the right kind of leader. Well, but Rondo, notice, I didn't say it has to be the best player, but it has to at least be a clutch player. At least be a dude who shows up when you need him. It can't be a dude who goes away under pressure.
Well, Max,
Max, they just giving Udonis Haslam $2.4 million a year. Yeah. They just giving them $2.4 million a year just to sit on the bench and not to be a leader.
Important.
Hold on, KP. Here's the deal, Max. Here's what you're missing. You're not highlighting how bad Kawhi is in terms of leadership. See, it'd be one thing if you were just some normal dude, and you just didn't happen, you didn't have that rah-rah personality, but you went out and you played as exceptionally well as he plays for the most part. But when you are the complete antithesis of that, where it's national news that you actually laughed at a press conference. Actually laughed. Because you laughed, it was national news. Because they've never seen anything from your personality. Because you're you have a penchant for giving one-liners and being gone. Because even when you're a star, people barely talk to you because you pretty much have nothing to say. You literally could work for the CIA. I mean, they look at you like that. It's a different animal with Kawhi Leonard. And when you are that extreme with your willingness to be a little bit, not extremely quiet, non-communicative, no rah-rah and stuff like that, that's where it's taken to another level, because it goes in the opposite direction. When you pay a guy superstar dollars and pay him max dollars, it's not just because of his ability to perform on the court. It's because of the ability he has to galvanize the folks around him. Tim Duncan, with his quiet personality, he was quiet to the media. He wasn't quiet to his teammates. He was a jokester. He played around. He had a great personality. You look at Steph, you look at LeBron, you look at others. There's a difference. That ain't Kawhi. That's a problem.
I'm not disputing that, guys. I'm saying who would be the better leader. In other words, do you have a chance to win a championship if Paul George is the leader of your team? I think the answer is no. But Kawhi's won 2 championships, and both times he was the MVP. And whether or not he was the leader,
he wasn't asked to be a leader
on that Spurs team. They gave him the MVP. On the Toronto team, who was the leader? You want to say Kyle Lowry? At the very least, Kawhi.
Hell yeah!
If you said Kawhi led the Raptors to the championship, that wouldn't be a lie. If Paul George ain't going to lead you to a championship, like if he's the leader, you're running up the white flag. so far in his career. Maybe it can change, but it hasn't been the case so far. And it's been largely a result of his play in the playoffs. I take no pleasure in saying that. I love Paul George. I love watching him play. But it's
they were down 3-1. They were down 3-1. Paul George had 26 and 33 before the game 7. You talking about one game. Well, that same one game, your leader didn't show up. Kawhi Leonard didn't show up either.
I'm talking about